Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. MC-Mura here, and today we're gonna talk about an alleged problem with many of the modern fighting games, and that is these games are too restrictive and they don't allow for enough player expression and freedom. And this was a discussion that have been talked about for a while now. There is a very famous video on it by Maximilian. I will leave a link to that in the description below so you can check it out. And in that video, Maximilian was saying that this is a trend that pretty much started with Street Fighter V, and the idea here is that games are kinda being played in a very controlled way, like you are having the experience that devs have intended, right? And this comes in terms of moves not being special cancelable or having like short cancel windows, specific combo routes that you kind of have to use and it's hard to deviate from, stuff like the characters not having that much options in the neutral, etc. And Max describes these games as being tight, and obviously there are other games that followed with that design philosophy, like say Mortal Kombat 11, to an extent Guilty Gear Strive, and you can see where he is going. Now, before I get into the whole thing about games being loose versus games being tight and the whole emergent gameplay thing, I just wanted to say that games being tight doesn't necessarily mean that they are bad, or the game being loose doesn't necessarily make it better. This is entirely a matter of preference, right? For me, I am someone who personally am very analytical and very methodical, right? I like the certainty of the outcome. So for example, a game like Street Fighter V is a game that I really enjoy because it's a consistent game, right? There isn't that much in terms of the mind game and mix-ups and all of that. A big part of it at least is a neutral game, and the general flow of it is very mathematical, right? And I know some people may not like it, some people will like it, I personally do, and that is totally fine. This is a total matter of preference, right? But before I get into the whole loose thing, I just wanted to say that loose in general is for the most part, for most of the games, it's an illusion of freedom. It's not really the game giving you the game allowing you to do a lot right out of the box. Feels good, but it doesn't necessarily make it a better game. Let me explain why. Let's talk about a game like King of Fighters 15, because by many metrics, King of Fighters is a very loose game, right? There are a ton of different combinations that you can use the character at. You got 39 characters, now we are at 42 with Team Garo just coming out, and you have to select 3 different characters. There are 3 different spots to slot them in. The game itself have a ton of different movement options, a lot of different combo routes, etc. Yet when you check out the high level games of King of Fighters, let's say that you're someone who is an intermediate level player, you went on and tried to check some high level matches on Twitch, what will you see? You will most likely see Ralph, Vanessa and Terry, and you will see Ralph running at the mid character most likely, Vanessa is gonna be on point, and Terry is gonna be the anchor, right? And players who use these characters, despite all of them having a good number of special moves and the ability to play in a various amount of ways, you will see them doing the same exact combos and playing in the same exact style. That is because that is the optimal way to play the game at the moment. You have to realize that competitor players, or at least like top players, they will always try to play the game in the most optimal way because they want to win. So what happens is the intermediate player will look up to the pros, the tournament level players, and they will try to do the same. So even if the game is giving you a lot of options, the game will get figured out and people will play it in the optimal way. Now, Max did say that this is eventually gonna happen in every game, and I agree with him, but he said that games that are more loose get figured out after a lot longer, and I heavily disagree with this. I think with the current speed that the information is spreading, It didn't take us like a couple of days, maybe a week, before we figured out that Ralph, Vanessa and Terry are ridiculous. Even before the game came out, I remember people saying that Ralph is completely busted. So I don't particularly agree with this point. Now another thing that is pretty interesting is that he was saying that games that doesn't have a lot of combo variety will allow for player expression in the neutral. But like I said, right, if the game is to be played in an optimal way, you will go for the optimal combo routes. Why would I go for a combo that does 200 damage when I can go for a combo that does 300? It doesn't make any logical sense to actually go for a different route, right? Or maybe this is a combo for Oki, this is a combo for damage, and this is like the combo for a reset. But again, characters are usually played in an optimal way. So the choice of what you want to do, more than likely there is a correct way to play the character. It doesn't make any difference what game it is. There is usually a correct and ideal way the character is meant to be played. Player expressions, at least in my opinion, player expression happens in the neutral, regardless of the game, regardless of what combo, setups, routes, whatever the game is allowing you. The most you will see of the player personality is in the neutral, right? And this can be very apparent in even quote-unquote restrictive games. For a character like Guile, you can't tell Daigo's Guile apart from any other one, because Daigo is a Guile that will leave charge and go for the crazy decisions, like wake up to forward throw, right? Knuckle-Doo have always had a very aggressive rushdown oriented Guile, while Kaba is somewhat of a mix of both, right? So you can see how each player is being able to play the character is different. Like the way Nash have been played by Infiltration was completely different to anyone that came before him. Tokido is playing a character like Urien, and he is totally different from everyone else. So I get the point that yes, there will be characters like say Cammy or Karen, where like it may seem like everyone is doing the same thing, but I do think still this is a case by case basis. I don't think it's fair to say the entire game is that way or that this is particularly bad. Neutral is what matters. Now I do agree with him that Street Fighter V removed a lot of the options in the neutral that would allow for a more variety in player expression. Like we don't have a character with Rekka, so there's no one that plays the way Fei Long played in Street Fighter 4. You can't really play hit and run that well because moves like jump back air fireball or jump back dive kick etc. don't really exist. So there is a point there, and I do agree that the game certainly moved into a more streamlined and a more restrictive fashion, but like I said, I don't necessarily think it's bad. Anyways, what did you think of the whole discussion? Do you agree that games should just open up everything? And even if they do, don't you agree that this will ultimately result in kind of a poor balancing and the game being played in the optimal way around the poor balancing? From my experience, the more the games ends up being open-ended, the more broken the balancing ends up being, and the optimal way means just playing the broken characters. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like or a comment, it helps the channel so much. I will be leaving a link to the Patreon page, the Discord, Twitter and Twitch pages in the description below. Thank you very much for watching and stay safe.